You were mentioning before about not doing a great deal of crime work, but I wondered in a sense, is it because, and I've talked to other criminal barristers about this, there's this constant rushing up and down of adrenaline that they experience. It's almost a daily thing. Some of them, well-known ones I've talked to, spoke about feeling literally sick before cases. Did you feel, even with your brief brush with criminal law, that constant surging and ebbing away of adrenaline might not suit you, if you like, as a practitioner?
I think I probably took that view. Also, there was a bit of snobbery about it in my day. I think criminal work was looked down on by what I'll call the big end of the town, by the big end of the bar. There was the leading silk like Jack Shand and Bill Dovey and Sam Isaacs, who did criminal work, but by and large, the rest of it was seen as being, in legal terms, inferior in quality to, say, equity work. I must tell you this, if you call it criminal work, I had a very modest start at the bar. I had no legal connections at all, except the occasional law student friend who'd graduated and was in practice as a solicitor. But there was a solicitor called I've forgotten his name, but he acted for a show called the New South Wales Taxi Owners and Drivers Association. And taxi drivers were always being charged by the police with a variety of minor, almost trivial traffic offences, if they...
Has anything changed, I wonder?
That's right, that's quite right. But there's hordes of these taxi drivers who'd be charged with negligent driving if they were 5 miles an hour over or if they didn't, if they worked outside their areas. Anyway, this solicitor, what's his name? I can't remember, not a quite bloke, but he had a deal that you would appear for any taxi driver on any offence anywhere in the metropolitan area for £6. Well, as you can imagine, he soon got sick of that, and he made an arrangement with me that I would appear for £5 for any taxi driver anywhere in this metropolitan area on any offence. So that's not the door, is it? No, I'm sure it isn't. Is it? Yes.
We'll just stop the tape for a sec.
Yes. A modest, very modest living for a couple of years. Out of going out to places like Liverpool, for God's sake, for £5, But that was, if you like, criminal work, but of a very low order,
It wasn't uncommon, of course, for young barristers like yourself to have to take whatever came across their desk. Where was your desk, by the way? Where were your first chambers?
My first chambers? Well, this is worth, I think, telling about. Chambers were enormously difficult, almost impossible to get in 1952 when I started the bar. I graduated in 51, spent a year as an associate. A friend of mine, was Mick Helsham, who became Chief Judge in Equity. And Mick and I were able, for a total sum of 10 shillings a week, to get a licence to use between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. a room on top of the lift well of the old university chambers across the road. The tenant of this room was a group of lady athletes under the title of the New South Wales Women's Amateur Sports Association. And they used this room only for the purpose of having meetings of their group. So every afternoon at about 10 to 5, a bevy of good-looking young female athletes
no doubt in shorts.
Yeah, would congregate outside our room, which became almost very well known at the bar because we would, all shy act for having all these young girls coming to see us, you see. And for about 2 years, Mick was able to get a room a bit earlier than me. I used that room, and you had to go up to the top of the old university chambers, which in the lift, which rattled up. I think the top floor was room level 6. You got out of the lift, you then went out to the stairway, took a small flight of stairs up to the roof, and there was a room there which was really meant to be, I think, for a caretaker. But they were the chambers which I had for the first couple of years at the bar. Then I got a room elsewhere. So
I must actually ask you about Mick or Michael Helsham. I read that he was one of the very few who was able to deal with Sir Frederick Myers or funnel web because he perfected the knack, I was reading, of saying, yes, Your Honour, yes, Your Honour, yes, Your Honour. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. Mick stayed a dear friend of mine all his life, still friendly with Jane, his wife, as my friend is. As my wife is. But Mick did have this capacity to butter up Freddie Myers.
Which was very difficult, I believe.
Oh, extremely difficult. I've seen Freddie reduce the most experienced counsel to tearing his hair out trying to deal with him. He was a very extraordinary man as a judge. I mean, Myers was.
Did you appear before him?
Oh, yes.
Was he awful to you?
Yes. I had this experience of being led by a silk in a big tobacco case, a fight between two tobacco companies about ownership of the name Pall Mall in cigarettes. And our opponent was Bob Frankie, who was a very senior, experienced barrister. He appeared for Rothmans and we were appearing for Wills. But Freddie made life so difficult over a period of weeks for Frankie that Frankie just, I think correctly, threw the towel and he realised he was never going to persuade Myers to take any point in his favour. He was a very difficult man.
Did you compare notes with Mick Helsham about this? Obviously, if Mick had the knack of at least keeping the judge reasonably pacified, if you like, happy, did some of you sit around and say, oh, well, look, this so-and-so is extremely difficult, the best way to handle him is such and such? Or didn't it really work in that kind of way?
Actually, Mick became, I think, too early in his life. Of course, he was a very good barrister. He became first, as I remember, an acting judge and then, only for a few months, and then a judge. And he really didn't stay at the bar long enough to, I think, reap the benefits of his undoubted capacity as a judge. I checked on this the other day. Mick must have gone on the bench about 1968 when he was 47 years of age. And you see...
That's early.
Yeah, and he came back from the war and then did law, so he wouldn't have been in practice for a great many... He was in practice as a junior for, I would suspect, 10 or 12 years, but not long as a silk, which was unfortunate. I think some blokes took jobs on the bench too early.
Maybe they did it for financial security reasons.
Absolutely. We don't. People nowadays would have no idea of the hardships, financial hardships that many barristers had to suffer